Shall we be seated, please? Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, Your Excellency, Vice President Yemi Sinbajo, Senate President, Speaker, House of Representatives, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of the Republic of Kenya, Chairman, Nigeria Governors Forum, and other governors here present, members of the Federal Executive Council, Her Excellency Katrina Lang, British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, All Progressives Congress presidential candidate, senior government officials, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Exactly 1 year ago this month, October 2021, we said goodbye to one another at the end of the second Ministerial Performance Review Retreat. Today, we are here for the third edition, and we give the glory to God who has kept and preserved us the past 1 year and has brought us here again today to go through this two-day exercise under the theme Enhance Security, Fight Corruption, Transform the Economy. It will be my pleasure now to invite to the microphone here.
A very warm welcome to our viewers in Nigeria and around the world. You're on to the live telecast of the third Ministerial Performance Review Retreat for ministers, permanent secretaries, and other top government functionaries holding at the State House Conference Center right here in the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Our signals are reaching you from the Nigerian Television Authority, Africa's largest TV network. My name is Mitari Ikbeng, thanking you for joining us on behalf of the outside broadcast crew of the NTA.
Your Excellency, President Muhammad Buhari, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta, immediate past President of the Republic of Kenya, the President of the Senate, the Right Honorable Speaker, members of the Federal Executive Council, permanent secretaries, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, heads of agencies and parastatals, CDS and service teams, our resource persons, senior government officials, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen of the press. I am delighted to welcome you to the third year Ministerial Performance Review Retreat organized by the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, 4 ministers, permanent secretaries, and top government officials. Let me especially welcome to this important event His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the Vice President, His Excellency, the immediate past President of the Republic of Kenya, the leadership of the National Assembly, the British High Commissioner, honorable ministers, permanent secretaries, top government functionaries, and other special guests. You will recall that the first presidential retreat was held in August of 2019 for ministers designate, permanent secretaries, and top government functionaries. The retreat provided update on the status of policies, programs, and projects of government to prepare the incoming cabinet members to assume their roles. It was also designed to map a trajectory towards the delivery of the administration's priority agenda for 2019 to 2023. This year's retreat is therefore the fourth and the last in the series of the presidential retreats to be organized during this second term of President Muhammadu Buhari. The first presidential retreat was followed 1 year later by the first-year ministerial review retreat, which was held on the 7th and 8th September 2020. The retreat provided an opportunity for the government to assess its performance and track the program and the progress of its commitment to deliver the development aspirations captured in the 9 priority areas that were adopted at the 2019 retreat. In the same vein, the Midterm Ministerial Performance Review Retreat was organized to review the performance of government at midterm and re-strategize for a second half of Mr. President's second term in office. The 2-day review retreat was held on the 11th and 12th October 2021 at this same venue. The objectives of the midterm retreat, among others, were to institutionalize the performance management system, PMS, to promote the culture of accountability and transparency in the public service, render progress report on the level of implementation of ministerial mandates along the 9 priority areas of the administration, review performance of ministries, and identify key impediments to implementation of the ministerial mandates and re-strategize on how to accelerate delivery of results. It is worthy of note that over the last 3 years, ministries have continued to implement the deliverables assigned to them in line with the ministerial mandates jointly signed by the ministers and permanent secretaries, which serve as a performance bond with Mr. President. Against this background, the purpose of this third-year ministerial performance review retreat is to report on progress made in the implementation of the ministerial mandates along the 9 priority areas of the administration. The main objective is to present a performance report on the ministerial mandates and the 9 priority areas based on data from the Central Delivery Coordination Unit performance management system, while other objectives are to analyze and discuss reasons for achievements and non-achievement of performance targets, identify and agree on strategy to improve performance, recognize accomplishment, and encourage ministers to deliver on the legacy projects of Mr. President as the administration winds down. To achieve this objective, the retreat has been structured into 3 main focus areas. The first is an overview of ministerial performance within the last 3 years of the administration. This will present key achievements and identify opportunities for improvement. The second will reflect on lessons and good practices from the Kenyan Presidential Delivery Unit. And the third will focus on ways to accelerate the delivery of flagship projects and programs of Mr. President before the end of this administration in May 2023. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to report that with the unflinching support of His Excellency Mr. President, the Central Delivery Coordination Unit has so far driven the federal government delivery initiative successfully. The CDCU performance management system introduced in 2021 has also been improved with the incorporation of a systemic feedback mechanism. It is important to point out that sequel to the midterm ministerial performance review retreat last year, the CDCU developed performance improvement suggestions, PIS, for all 28 ministries as well as the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation. The PIS, as a major value addition, recommend ways of improving performance, especially for deliverables that were rated below 50%. The PIS enables each ministry develop actionable plans to accelerate the implementation of deliverables towards the achievement of the 2023 targets. As part of efforts to integrate the CDCU into the global delivery community, Nigeria's delegates, in conjunction with Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn, FCDO, PAL, participated at the 2021 African Delivery Exchange Conference, which held virtually from 15th to 16th of December 2021. The African Delivery Exchange is an annual delivery event organized by the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change and the African Development Bank. The conference brings together government delivery units, leaders and practitioners from across Africa to share their delivery learnings and experiences. I'm glad to note that our guest speaker today, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, immediate past President of the Republic of Kenya, was instrumental to the formation of the African Delivery Exchange Conference and hosted the second edition of the conference in 2020. To address the issue of limited civil service capacity in driving the delivery process, CDCU has continued to provide technical support for ministries to establish, inaugurate, and train delivery task teams, which are made up of staff of the departments and agencies under the supervision of such ministries to ensure timely reporting on ministerial deliverables. This support aims at deepening the delivery capacity of MDS to complete key legacy projects, programs, and projects and policies of government with a focus on the low-hanging fruits. As at September 2022, a total of 17 ministries had set up and inaugurated their delivery task teams, while others are at advanced stages in preparation to doing so. Let me, at this juncture, encourage the remaining ministries to facilitate the setting up of their delivery task teams without further delay. As part of the functionality of the performance management system, a presidential delivery tracker was launched on 30th of August 2022. The Presidential Delivery Tracker app is a co-creation platform that connects citizens to governance in Nigeria by increasing citizens' access to the federal government's presidential priority policies, programs, and projects. The goal of the PDT is to promote transparency and expand access to reporting on presidential priority policies, programs, and projects by incorporating citizens as the third layer of reporting to offer vital information that will facilitate service delivery. The PTD is not designed to cover all activities of the federal government, but is restricted in scope to the policies, programs, and projects implemented by the federal government ministries, departments, and agencies towards the achievement of the presidential priority programs, such as the 9 priority areas of this administration. The PTD will enable the CDCU to triangulate the feedbacks from the citizens with reports obtained from the implementing ministries. The PTT was used by the CDCU to successfully track implementation of projects and programs during the recent spot checks exercise across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, In line with Mr. President's directive at the third midterm review retreat last year, the OSDF has put in place a legal framework for the institutionalization of the delivery of the presidential priorities in Nigeria. In this regard, an executive order on the improving performance management, coordination, and implementation of presidential priorities of the federal government of Nigeria has been developed and will be formally signed by His Excellency Mr. President at this retreat. The executive order is meant to strengthen the national monitoring and evaluation policy recently approved by the Federal Executive Council. The National MME policy provides guiding principles, standards, and responsibilities that would ensure result-based planning and management of resources in the implementation of government projects. Also in line with His Excellency Mr. President's directive, the CDCU has been submitting weekly progress reports on the implementation of ministerial mandates to the President. This keeps Mr. President appraised of the level of achievement of the deliverables against set targets. So far, I have submitted to Mr. President the first quarter performance report of all ministries and circulated same to the ministers, the head of the civil service, the permanent secretaries, and directors of planning, research, and statistics, while the second quarter 2022 performance report will be presented at this retreat. Permit me, Your Excellency, to use this opportunity to inform all ministries that the CDCU has commenced the production of quarterly reports on the performance of ministerial mandates. These reports are derived from the quarterly submission of performance data by ministries using the output result template, progress report, and project reporting template developed by the CDC. Ministries are therefore encouraged to ensure timely submission of their data to facilitate this process. I wish to, at this point, highlight activities earmarked for the technical sessions designed to focus on the following thematic areas. 1, the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, reflections on the journey so far. 2, enabling delivery and managing transition, the Kenyan experience. 3, overview of the third-year scorecard and summary of ministerial and MDA performance. 4, panel discussions focusing on accelerating delivery and ensuring impact. 5, progress update on Nigeria's National Development Plan. And 6, presentation on the imperatives of national security for development of the Nigerian state. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, let me state that this retreat will be solution-driven and participatory in nature. It is therefore very important, and I urge participants to make useful and constructive contributions during the technical session. The outcome of the retreat is expected to pave the way for the ramping up of the delivery of government policies, programs, and projects as this administration concludes its tenure by May 2023. I encourage us to participate actively in all the sessions of the retreat, as this is the last performance review for this administration, which has done well to sustain the unity and development of our country. And finally, following in the footsteps of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari when he bid the world farewell on the floor of the United Nations General Assembly in the month of September, assuring the world of a free, fair, and credible election and a peaceful transition. I also say, by the grace of God, and if the Lord tarries, By this time next year, someone else will be coordinating the ministerial retreat. Once again, I welcome you all to this very important retreat, and I look forward to the ensuing stimulating discussions over the next 2 days. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, for giving us those objectives and setting the context for this 2-day exercise. We have come to the session for goodwill messages. And the first person to speak to us is Her Excellency, Chena Lang, British High Commissioner to Nigeria. 3 minutes.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammad Buhari, Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yomi Osinbajo, ladies and gentlemen, please permit me to stand on the existing protocol. First, let me say a huge thank you to His Excellency President Buhari for inviting me to my second ministerial retreat. I am so honoured to be joining you here today. As the tenure of this government ends in 7 months, I wanted to reflect briefly on 3 issues, which for me highlight why what you are doing here today is so important. Firstly, institutionalizing a culture of accountability. Performance management enables accountability and better delivery of essential services. They are so necessary for building trust and the social contract between the government and its citizens. A strong health system, for example, that enables Nigerians to lead healthy lives, and quality education that enables children to learn, unlocking their future potential. Sees actual services that matter to individuals. And where the needs of citizens are met, citizens are more willing to perform their civic duties. So for this 3rd consecutive year, the government has prioritised the Ministerial Performance Retreat to hold ministries, departments and agencies to account. This is highly commendable. I am so proud that the UK government is working with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to institutionalise and embed the system through our Partnership to Engage, Reform and Learn programme. Secondly, consolidating democracy. Accountability is at the heart of democracy, and the 2023 general election presents a hugely important opportunity for Nigeria to entrench the democratic principles of accountability, inclusion and equality, political freedom and rule of law. At a time when some countries in West Africa are experiencing democratic regression and the illegal removal of elected governments, I commend His Excellency President Buhari for his commitment at the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly to leave a legacy of free and fair elections in Nigeria. Nigeria must remain on the path of democratic consolidation because democracy matters greatly to the world. Finally, economic resilience. The global economy is experiencing significant headwinds, recovering post-COVID-19 and now impacted by the Russia war, high energy prices and food inflation. Nigeria's economy is more resilient than many, but the global context has exacerbated your challenges. Nigeria stands to benefit taking difficult and brave decisions, which can, for example, free up the fiscal space for infrastructure investment and development priorities. And secondly, unlocking the investment that we all know will create better jobs in agriculture, in digital, and so on. And it's this delivery framework that you have in front of you that provides you with the data that you will need to help make these important choices. So finally, to conclude, I would like to reiterate the hugely important historical ties and the strong partnership between Nigeria and the UK. The UK is fully committed to a stable, peaceful and prosperous Nigeria. As the government intensifies its efforts to achieve the 9 priorities, communicating the good results and engaging the public where actions are needed is really important for building trust and confidence. 7 months is a short time, yet sufficient to finish well, and you will leave behind this hugely important legacy of delivery for future governments. The government's success is Nigeria's success. If Nigeria succeeds, Africa succeeds. And the UK is hugely proud to partner with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency Katrina Lang, British High Commissioner to Nigeria. Next to speak to us in these goodwill messages is the Speaker, House of Representatives, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila. Speaker, please.
Your Excellency, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Excellency Vice President, Senate President, former President Kenya, ladies and gentlemen, I bring you greetings and best wishes from the House of Representatives, and I thank you for the invitation to join you here today. The true test of government policies and programs is its ability to improve the lives and circumstances of citizens in measurable ways. When we design policies and programs, it is vital to embed monitoring and evaluation into policy design so we can assess the extent to which our objectives are being met every step of the way. I've heard the Secretary to the government talk about 9 priority areas. But I think we all know in Nigeria that this administration came in on a 3-point agenda. But it is not as simple as that. Within those 3-point agendas, you have offshoots, spin-offs, and you have a lot of areas that may not be priority, but are embedded within those 3 points agenda. For me, the 3 points agenda, as we see corruption, the economy, and security, are interwoven and connected. In other words, you cannot have one without the other. In other words, one or two are sine qua non or conditions precedent before you can get the third. To put it plainly, you cannot have a thriving economy without taking care of the security situation. You cannot have a thriving economy without tackling corruption. So these are things that need to be measured, how far and how well we have done as a government. The Ministerial Performance Review Retreat is happening just as the National Assembly has begun considering the 2023 Appropriations Bill. For us in the National Assembly, this is a budget of consolidation, an opportunity to complete projects, conclude programs, and institutionalize processes. The outcome of this retreat will provide valuable data and context to help inform the decisions we make in Parliament regarding the current budget proposal. An effective system for monitoring the implementation and reviewing the performance of government policies and programs is a fundamental requirement for succeeding in government. The administration of His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, has made it a practice to regularly review the implementation of policies, programs, and projects and make the outcome of such reviews part of governing decisions. Now, this is very laudable and worthy of emulation, and we must find a way to institutionalize this practice, even if it requires legislation. This is accountability at its best. And I'm glad to hear when I was listening to the SGF that he has even preempted what I had to say, and they have already started the process of institutionalization of this very important area of administration. It is not lost on me that this is the administration's last ministerial performance review retreat. As much as possible, I urge you to document your experiences in government. Let the lessons you learned from designing policies and implementing programs guide and influence the future long after you leave office. I thank all of you for your service to our country and wish you a successful retreat. God bless you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, Speaker of the House of Representatives. The final goodwill message will come from the President of the Senate, Senator Ahmad Lawan.
Your Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, Commander-in-Chief for the Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osibajo, GCON, Your Excellency, President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of Kenya, the Right Honorable Speaker, Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum, and other executive governors present, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the press, I am most delighted to be here at this third-year Ministerial Performance Review Retreat, which provides an opportunity to assess how far you have gone and the more things you have to do to achieve the set goals and targets. This is an exercise that we all know that the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation has been consistent at doing, which demonstrates a focus on ensuring that the administration achieves its set objectives. Government objectives are no doubt work in progress, but the passion to realize them is often a motivation to be timely, especially when a government such as that of the President, Muhammadu Buhari, which is committed to leaving very lasting legacies of accomplishments. The Ninth Senate drew its legislative agenda in 2019 provide optimum and ample legislative backing to the various programs of this administration. This retreat, therefore, provides an opportunity for the Senate, indeed the National Assembly, to assess how efficacious the various legislative interventions have been to governance in the last 3.5 years. In other words, this is a holistic assessment of how the various development programs of the federal government have been implemented by way of policies and legislations. I will go further to suggest that such ministerial performance retreats can be jointly organized by individual ministries with the relevant committees of National Assembly and key stakeholders to assess the implementation and impacts of certain critical legislations from time to time. I should also say that retreats are no doubt a significant exercise for permitting assessments of policies and their directions and for creating opportunities for pathways towards action. This is frequently possible because they are not just like an event for peer review, but also a chance to examine weaknesses in programs towards making amends. For the ministers, federal permanent secretaries, presidential aides, and the top government functionaries working with President Muhammad Buhari, a retreat becomes more crucial because of the resolve on delivering the dividend of democracy to Nigerians. It is an exercise that the National Assembly also appreciates as a productivity development event, in addition to helping in the evaluation of outputs as expected by the legislature. I've seen the thrust of the retreat, which is to review the status of the implementation of policies, programs, and projects, and to examine the level of delivery of the 9 presidential priority agenda of the administration. The nobility of this thrust cannot be overstated, considering that policies often experience twists and turns to arise from likely new realities. We are presented with another chance of gauging the realities and possibly developing shocks against them. For instance, while Mr. President is no doubt dealing with crime, new dimensions have reared their heads in what requires innovative planning. Similarly, while we visualize the efforts of the administration in infrastructure, dwindling resources have emerged as a new challenge. A retreat like this, therefore, should help put things in context, having been at the forefront of working on government policy objectives. I am confident we will make productive use of the opportunity in the interest of meeting the yearnings and aspirations of our people. I commend your vision in putting this together and urge us all to be forthcoming and enthusiastic, not just for the common good of all, but also towards personal fulfillment as public officials with meaningful input to national development. It is therefore a great pleasure to attend this retreat and to wish you all a rewarding deliberation. God bless you all. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, President of the Senate, Senator Ahmad Lawan, for that goodwill message. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have come to a defining point in this opening session of this retreat, and that is the time we are going to listen to His Excellency, the President, in his opening speech. Your Excellency, sir.
Please sit down. Thank you. Your Excellency, the Vice President, Your Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, former President of the Republic of Kenya, Senate President, Speaker, House of Representatives, members of the Federal Executive Council, Her Excellency Ketrona Liang, British High Commissioner to Nigeria, senior government official, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome everyone to the third year and my last Ministerial Performance Review Retreat, organized to evaluate the level of progress made in the implementation of the 9-point priority agenda of this administration. I am particularly delighted to welcome His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, the immediate First President of the Republic of Kenya, and members of his delegation, and sufficiently thank him for honoring our invitation to give the keynote speaker at this retreat. We look forward to hearing about your experience, especially around the last months, prior to handing over to your successor. This retreat is organized at a time when we have commenced political activities and campaigns for the forthcoming general elections in the first quarter of 2023. It therefore provides an opportunity for us as a government to reflect on the progress made so far, review the status of the implementation of the policies, programs, and projects of government in line with the collective aspirations of our people, as well as identify areas that need urgent intervention. An exercise like this will ensure that we maintain the right trajectory before the end of May 2023 in order to achieve the promises we made to the Nigerian people at the inception of this administration. I am glad to note that over the past 3 years, ministries have continued to navigate the challenging times to ensure the implementation of policies, programs, and projects in the ministerial mandate signed by ministers and permanent secretaries in 2019. The administration of the laudable policy thrust of this administration is periodically tracked, reviewed, and analyzed by the Central Delivery Coordination Unit through quarterly performance reports of the 29 ministries, including the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation. Through the innovative delivery initiative put in place by this government in 2019, I have continued to receive weekly updates from Secretary to the Government of the Federation, prepared by Central Delivery Coordination Unit on the implementation of the ministerial mandates. So far, the reports show that we are making remarkable progress and on track to reach most of the deliverables in the ministerial mandates against the benchmark targets for 2023. The objective is to ensure that we complete and deliver on our flagship projects and programs, promote sustainable economic growth and development, as well as improve the living standards of our people. In recognition of the importance of critical infrastructure in economic development and the quest of this administration to leave a lasting legacy, we have implemented high-impact projects across the length and breadth of the country that meet the yearnings and aspirations of Nigerians. Some of the notable achievements include the completion of 326 kilometers Itape, Ajakuta, Warri rail line, and railway ancillary facilities, the completion of over 150 kilometers Lagos-Ibadan standard gauge railway modernization project with extension to Lagos, Port Harcourt, Port, and Apapa. On road projects, the administration has constructed 408-kilometer roads, 2,499 kilometers of Cook roads, and maintenance of 15,961 kilometers of roads across the country. Key among these projects are the construction of 1.9-kilometer second Niger Bridge linking Anambra and Delta states with 10.30 kilometers approach road rehabilitation, construction, and expansion of Lagos, Shagamu, Ibadan dual carriageway. The ongoing rehabilitation of Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Road, among others. We have sustained our commitment to infrastructural development for the past 7 years. This is evident in handling over 941 kilometers of completed Sukuk Road projects nationwide. Furthermore, the federal government has embarked on the reconstruction of 21 selected federal roads totaling 1,846 kilometers under the Road Infrastructure Development and Refurbishment Investment Tax Credit Policy. The roads, which are funded by Nigerian National Petroleum Limited, are in addition to similar existing collaboration with Mrs. Dangote Industries Limited and other corporate organizations to improve the stock of our road infrastructure. On another front, the establishment of a national carrier for Nigeria is at 91% completion, expected to commence flight operations before the end of this year. This is being boosted with the certification of two of our international airports, Lagos and Abuja, by International Civil Aviation Organization, while Kano and Port Harcourt airports are undergoing similar certification process. On the economy, we have witnessed 7 consecutive quarters of growth after negative growth rates recorded in the second and third quarters of 2020. The GDP grew by 3.54% year-on-year in real terms in the second quarter of 2022. This growth rate represents a sustained positive economic performance, especially for the non-oil GDP, which fell by 4.77% in quarter 2 2022 against oil GDP that grew by minus 11.7%. Most sectors of the economy recorded positive growth, which reflects the effective implementation of the economic sustainability measures introduced by this administration. As part of our continued drive to promote the communication and digital economy sector, giant strides have been made through our broadband coverage, which currently stands at 44.32%. This being reinforced by 77.52% G4 or 4G coverage, with the establishment of 36,751 4G base stations nationwide. The power sector has remained critical priority to the administration. The implementation of a willing buyer, willing seller policy introduced by this administration has opened up opportunities for increased delivery of electricity to underserved homes and industries. We are also executing a number of critical projects through the transmission, rehabilitation, and expansion program, which will result in achieving the national goal of improved power by 2025. It is important to state that the partnership between the federal government of Nigeria and German Siemens AG through the Presidential Power Initiative to increase electricity generation to 25,000 megawatts in 6 years is on course, as the first batch of the transformers has arrived in Nigeria already. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you will recall that I signed the much-awaited Petroleum Industry Act into law on 16 August 2021. The Act provides a legal governance, regulatory, and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, as well as the development of host communities and related matters. To achieve the objectives of PIA, we have unbundled the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation and have established the Nigerian National Petroleum Limited, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, and the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. As part of efforts towards strengthening our national security, we have substantially invested in arms, weapons, and other critical military hardware, as well as continuous training for our armed forces. The Nigerian Air Force has acquired 38 brand new aircraft and is expecting another batch of 36 new ones, while the Nigerian Navy has been equipped with new platforms, sophisticated riverine rigid hull, inflammable seaward defense, whaler, and fast attack boats, as well as helicopters and capital ships. To boost the number of our police personnel, 20,000 policemen have been recruited, trained, and fully integrated and deployed in 2020 and 2021. This exercise has strengthened our community policing strategy, which is enshrined in the Police Act 2020. As an administration, we have unwavering and in our fight against corruption. We will continue to review and prosecute high-profile corruption cases and ensure speedy completion. Accordingly, we have established platforms to promote collaboration among anti-corruption and prosecuting agencies of government. This is to ensure government at all levels is effective, efficient, accountable, and transparent. The implementation of our social investment programs and other social economic programs and policies demonstrates our administration's continued commitment to enhancing the welfare of average Nigerian. As of June 2022, we had enrolled 75% of the 1 million beneficiaries of Batch C under the N-Power program. Additionally, 9,990,862 pupils are being fed through the school feeding program, which employs 128,531 cooks in local communities. Following the passage of the National Health Act in 2014, this administration began the inclusion of the 1% minimum portion of the Consolidated Revenue Fund to cater for the Basic Health Care Provision Fund. Consequently, 988,652 poor and indigent Nigerians have been enrolled in the Basic Health Care Provision Fund. We should also note that a total of 7,373 primary health facilities have been accredited and capitated under the National Health Insurance Scheme pathway, while 7,242 primary healthcare facilities are receiving decentralized facility financing under the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Basic Healthcare Provision Fund Gateway. On the issue of coronavirus pandemic, Nigeria has done extremely well in its response to the pandemic, having been commended by the World Health Organization. As at the end of September this year, 51,713,575 eligible people had received the first dose of the coronavirus vaccine, representing 46.3% of the eligible population. Out of this number, 38,765,510 people have been fully vaccinated, and this represents 34.7% of the eligible population that is fully vaccinated. I therefore encourage all eligible Nigerians to ensure that they are fully vaccinated, as Nigeria's vaccine stock balance stands at about 27 million doses. As a direct result of our investment in the agricultural sector has experienced significant growth, the shortfall in food production and food importation bills have both been reduced significantly. Along with the production of other staple crops, we have reached our goal of self-sufficiency in rice production. We are exerting a lot of effort to solve the problem of the rising cost of food that is related to inflation being a global crisis. Our efforts in building the capacity of our youth are yielding results. Only recently, Nigeria finished 7th on the medals table out of 72 nations and territories that participated in the 2022 Commonwealth Games held in Birmingham, United Kingdom, winning 12 gold, 9 silver, and 14 bronze. Indeed, the nation is proud of the exploits of Toby Amusin for winning the 2022 World Athletics Championships 100-meter hurdles gold medal in Eugene, Oregon, thereby setting a new world record at the World Athletes Championship. Distinguished guests and participants, to this consolidate our achievements over the last 3 years, this retreat has been designed to A, review the performance of ministries in delivering the ministerial mandates signed in 2019, B, identify and propose solutions towards solving key impediments to implementation, and C, re-strategize on how to accelerate the delivery of results along the 9 priority areas of our administration, especially as the administration is winding down. Ladies and gentlemen, at this critical point in the life of our administration, it is imperative for ministers, permanent secretaries, and all heads of agencies to reinvigorate their efforts in ramping up delivery of flagship programs and projects contained in their ministerial mandates. Let me now acknowledge the efforts of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and his able team in sustaining the annual performance review retreat, which has enabled us to maintain focus on our agenda and, more importantly, provide solid evidence that supports our achievements. I am also proud to see that our administration is staying true to our commitment to the Open Government Partnership Initiative, which I signed up in 2017. In this regard, the Prudential Delivery Tracker was launched on 30th August 2022, which is a clear testament to this administration commitment to participatory governance. As part of efforts to strengthen performance management culture, the Central Delivery Coordination Unit is being institutionalized. As an initiative of this administration, I am delighted to bequeath this legacy to my successor as part of the mechanisms that will assist the next administration in delivering on its promises to the Nigerian people. Finally, I wish to encourage all participants to engage optimally throughout this retreat. I look forward to a very fruitful session and stimulating exchange of views. It is my pleasure now to formally declare this retreat open. Thank you, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Let's be seated, please. We thank His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, for formally and officially declaring this retreat open. We are getting into two technical presentations, which our friends in the media will still cover before they take their leave. The first will be by our own Vice President, His Excellency Professor Yemi Osinbajo. The topic is the President Muhammadu Buhari administration reflections on the journey so far. Your Excellency, Mr. Vice President.
Your Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, Your Excellency, the immediate past President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, CGH, the President of the Senate, Distinguished Senator Ibrahim Ahmad Lawan, the Speaker, House of Representatives, the Right Honorable Femi Gbajabiamila, and other members of the National Assembly present, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, members of the Federal Executive Council present, the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation, Dr. Folashade Yemi-Eson, Your Excellency, the British High Commissioner to Nigeria, Ambassador Katrina Long, permanent secretaries and other heads of government agencies and parastatals present, friends and colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I am to speak for a few minutes on reflections on the President Muhammadu Buhari administration, the journey so far. And I think that what this annual retreat offers is an opportunity to reflect on some of the issues that made a difference in our administration. And what I intend to do is to spend time not listing our many achievements. There is a detailed monograph that is titled The Achievements of the Buhari Administration, which I'm sure we all have in our packs, that does this excellently. which does this excellently. And I wanted to show a copy of that, but I'm sure we all have it. So I'll rather focus on four of what I think are the fundamental ways in which our policies and programs have contributed to Nigeria's transformational journey, and to point to three challenges that I believe must be confronted, and then perhaps end with a recommendation. I begin with the development of infrastructure, and especially the creativity which we have brought to infrastructure financing. Clearly, there is no administration to date that has invested anywhere close to our investment in infrastructure, from roads, rail to power, and broadband infrastructure. The financing menu which we adopted include the road infrastructure development and refurbishment investment tax credit policy. This has incentivized the construction of almost 1,500 kilometers of critical roads in the economic corridors. Under the scheme, the Dangote Group has substantially completed the reconstruction of the 34-kilometer Apapa-Oron-Shoki-Ojota Expressway in Lagos and the 43-kilometer Obajana-Kaba Road. Similarly, the Nigeria LNG Limited is on track to complete the 38-kilometer Bodo-Boni Bridge and Roads project by the end of 2023. And recently, the President gave approval to MTN to construct the 202 billion Enugu-Onitsha Road. The second on the menu is the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, PIDF, which is managed by our Sovereign Wealth Authority, where we have leveraged more than $1 billion in financing to facilitate the accelerated completion of the second Niger Bridge, the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and the Abuja-Kano Road. The third is the Sukuk funds. The fourth is the Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria, or InfraCo as we call it, established in 2021, with a seed capital of 1 trillion naira from the Central Bank of Nigeria, our Sovereign Wealth Authority, and the Africa Finance Corporation. So all of these are the innovative ways by which we've been able to fund infrastructure outside of budget. The power sector is an area where there has been game-changing progress. But the situation is rather like building a skyscraper. The foundation is several floors into the ground, and no one sees the work while the critical component of the building is being done. And this is where we are in the power sector. A lot of foundational stuff is going on. First is the improvement in generating capacity today. More than 4,000 megawatts of additional power generating assets will be completed under the life of this administration. These include the Zungeru Hydro, Kashambila Hydro, the Afam 3 Fast Power, the Kudenda Kaduna Power Plant, Opai Phase 2 Gas Power Plant, and then the Dangote Refinery Power Plant, and many others. Recently, KPMG concluded a study showing that while the figure of 4,000 megahertz is the average used daily on the grid, electricity delivered by our electricity industry, which includes grid, captive power, and embedded power, is in excess of 8,000 megahertz daily, not 4,000 megahertz. And also that installed capacity is in excess of 18,000 megahertz and not 13,000 megahertz. Much of the improvement to the 8,000 megahertz that we're talking about has occurred under our administration, and they include, the 28 grid power plants with installed capacity of about 13,000 megahertz and operational daily capacity of around 5,000 megahertz. These include our power plants in Egbe, Uheli, Geregu, Kanji, and others. Then there's the 266 captive power plants with installed capacities of about 4,000 megahertz and daily operational capacities of about 2,500 megahertz. These include the Dangote cement capacities in Obajana, Ibeshi, that's 400 megahertz of power, and LNG's 240 megahertz of power on the Bonny Island power plant. These are never captured in the statistics, but are part of the stock of our Nigerian electricity supply industry. In the future, many of these plants will integrate into the grid. In fact, some of them supply power to the communities where they are already. Then there is the 16 embedded power plants with about 549 megawatts of installed capacity and 190 megawatts of daily operational capacity. So there is a whole range of generating capacity. Most of them that are not currently under the grid, they're captive or embedded, depending on which ones they are. But all of them contribute to our generating capacity and power supply on a regular basis. Our renewable energy program has attained great momentum. The Solar Power Niger, which is a program introduced by the Economic Sustainability Plan, will help us to achieve 5 million solar connections, impacting over 12 million Nigerians. The Ministry of Power is also driving an additional 49 billion in off-grid funding through the Solar Power Niger loans via the Central Bank of Nigeria. There are also ongoing projects under the Solar Power Niger. The NDPHC is doing 7 billion in solar projects, NMPC is doing 22 billion in solar projects, and NSI is doing 10 billion. Infra Credit is doing another 10 billion, and this is Naira. An important component of our power program is the National Mass Metering Program. And I think that it's important to bear in mind that this program is one that has helped greatly in advancing the fortunes of our electricity industry. It is financed by the CBN. 1 million meters have been installed so far, and there is now a structure to meter an additional 6 million households and also to provide a way of sustainably eliminating the metering gap. One of the major complaints of our discos and major complaints of the electricity industry is that there isn't adequate metering. And so many times discos have to give estimated billings, and this of course is a tremendous irritation to consumers. But now with the metering program, we're heading for at least 6 million by the end of this administration. 41 meter factories are now functional in Nigeria, and they've created 10,000 jobs as part of the metering program. So going forward in the electricity industry, and of course we cannot, there's so much that's going on there. But going forward, it is proposed that the TCN be separated into 2 entities under the direct oversight of the Ministry of Power. And the 2 constituent parts would be the Transmission Company of Nigeria to serve as a transmission service provider responsible for the provision of infrastructure for transporting electric energy across the whole of Nigeria. And then the Independent System Operator to provide systems operations, which mainly is about management of power dispatch and grid security. And then the Market Operator function, which is Market Settlement Administration. So this arrangement will create independence between the TCN as a regulator and participant, and certainly will improve the confidence of market participants. The second game-changing achievement in our administration, in my view, is digital economy. First is the rapid expansion of broadband access. In August 2019, the broadband coverage was 33.7%, and today it is 44.65%, representing close to 13 million new broadband users. There were 13,823 4G base stations, and we now have 36,751, representing a 165% increase. The percentage 4G coverage across the country has increased from 23% to 77.52%. The expansion has been greatly helped by the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy directly engaging the states on the right-of-way policy with a view to persuading them to reduce the rates charged for laying fiber optic cables to as low as 140 naira per meter. Many states have complied, and some states have even completely removed the charges. But what I believe will become the biggest contribution of the digital economy to the Nigerian economic growth is the deployment of 5G technology. We now have presidential approval for the 5G policy. In terms of density, 4G allows connections to about 1 million devices within 500 square kilometers, while 5G will allow the same number of devices in just 1 square kilometer. There's also, of course, the very fast data rates of the 5G and more efficient energy usage. Of course, the cost of data has also crashed from 1,200 per GB in 2019 to about 360 naira today, making it easier for Nigerians to connect to the internet. Now, the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy has embarked on the National Information and Communication Technology Infrastructure Backbone 2, which is called NICTIB 2 for short, to connect 20 states with fiber optics that had not been connected under NICTIB 1. We've also made tremendous progress with expanding the digital identity database from less than 40 million people who had national identification numbers in 2020. We now have 268,742 NIN records as at the end of September 2022. So digital identity is profoundly important for the entire economy because first it assures democratized access to basic services like health, education, banking, and enables the inclusion of millions in the digital economy. Another key strand of Nigeria's digital journey is the stellar performance of our fintech companies, the growth of which was supported very actively by the central bank in terms of granting new categories of licenses and providing clear regulatory guidelines for payment service providers. And this has led to an explosion in participation, with the value of digital transactions in Nigeria rising to 286 trillion naira. That is $690 billion in 2021. In the midst of 2 recessions since 2015, Nigeria now has 6 unicorns. These are digital companies valued at over $1 billion each. One of them is in fact valued $3 billion, bigger than most Nigerian banks. These include the companies Flutterwave, OPay, Andela, Interswitch, Jumia, PiggyVest, and Paystack. Many of these companies were founded or co-founded by Nigerians. When they founded them, most of them were under 30 years old. The third game-changing achievement, in my view, are the ease of doing business reforms, PEBEC. And I think PEBEC has since 2016 implemented 160 reforms. PEBEC is our Presidential Enabling Business Environment Council. These include the digitization of company registration, tax payment, and the visa on arrival process. All of these are digitized processes. Of course, there are hitches here and there, and we're not going to go into all of that detail. Then there are legislative reforms. With very active collaboration of the National Assembly, we've been able to pass the Secure Transactions in Movable Assets Act of 2017 and the Credit Reporting Act of 2017 as well. These 2 acts enable MSMEs to enjoy financial inclusion and facilitate access to credit by legalizing the use of movable assets as collateral. In the past, of course, movable assets were not used effectively as collateral. So no one would want to accept your car as collateral. No one would want to accept any movable asset. But now under this law, movable assets are used and can be used as collateral. And these laws have improved transparency and enhanced risk management in credit transactions. To date, over 700 billion naira worth of assets have been listed on our National Collateral Registry. And there is a new, and this is important because now we have a register of collateral. So if you've used your movable asset as collateral, it is listed somewhere. And you can check that on the website. You can be sure that a person does not use a car twice or thrice for collateral because there is now an established register. Also, there's the new Companies and Allied Matters Act, which contains extensive business facilitation provisions, and we have the Omnibus Bill, which is still before the National Assembly, which is to codify Executive Order 001 on transparency and efficiency. Then we have justice sector reforms along the business lines as well. the establishment of small claims courts for settlement of commercial disputes that are under 5 million naira. Lagos State was the first to establish this in 2018 with the collaboration of Pidf. And since 2018, they have looked over at 4,000 different cases. And these have been heard in 19 courts across the state. And this, of course, has reduced cost and time of commercial litigation for many MSMEs. Kano, Ogun, Edo, Ekiti, Nasarawa, Jigawa have also started their own operations. Bayelsa, Kaduna, and Sokoto, and the FCT are on the verge of launching their own small claims courts in the very, very near future. Between 2016 and 2019, Nigeria moved up 39 places in the World Bank Doing Business rankings and was twice named as one of the top 10 most improved economies in the world. The fourth game-changing achievement of our government is a social investment program, and the President dwelt considerably on this. This is an important ideological and policy statement of our party and our government. We took the view from the very inception of the government that a country, especially where there are large numbers of poor people, must provide a well-thought-out social safety net for the poorest and the most vulnerable, and there must be interventions for the young unemployed. So this led to the deployment of the largest social investment program in Sub-Saharan Africa, with a budgetary provision of 500 billion naira. And at the time, that was close to $2 billion. Since 2016, we've included that almost 500 billion naira in every one of our budgets. And now it's closer, I believe, to 1 trillion naira. It includes conditional cash transfers to over 2 million of the poorest, benefiting from a bi-monthly stipend of 10,000 naira. The National Social Register now contains 46 million persons in over 11 million poor and vulnerable households from across the Federation. We have a school feeding program for public primary schools, now feeding close to 10 million school children across the country. We have an award-winning microcredit scheme for informal traders under the Government Enterprises and Empowerment Program, so the likes of trader money, farmer money, market money, etc. Then we have interventions for the young unemployed population, the Empower Program. We began with employment of about 500,000 young people, and now we have presidential approval for 1 million to be employed under the scheme. So aside from the obvious benefits to millions, the program also is an opportunity to build local digital capacity and expand the financial inclusion base for millions. For the JEEP program, for example, we gave the management to the Bank of Industry, who built the platform that eventually serviced over 4 million beneficiaries, disbursing and handling repayment of credit for this number of people. Today, the Bank of Industry's growth platform is Africa's largest infrastructure for interventions to MSMEs. The growth platform's command center now has 22,000 agents living across all local government areas in Nigeria, equipped with proprietary mobile technologies. They receive mandates to capture and digitize businesses that are eligible for its growing suite of programs. The Empower program also led to the building of a robust digital platform for recruiting, for paying, and engaging beneficiaries, the largest of its kind in Africa. The homegrown school feeding has shown multiple returns on investment. It has raised enrollment in schools by as high as 40%, significantly improving nutrition and health outcomes for children in public schools, improving revenues for farmers who service the scheme, and jobs for aggregators, cooks, and others in the value chain. One key lesson that our experience has shown is that it is quite possible to run large-scale programs for the benefit of ordinary Nigerians in a fair and transparent manner. Using technology reduces the problems of human agency and discretion. Running such large programs fairly goes a long way in encouraging ordinary Nigerians to believe and trust in the government that they have voted into power. Permit me to mention 3 challenges that we must confront going forward. The first is the synergy between fiscal and monetary policy. Wherever that synergy fails, it leads to unnecessary drawbacks in our economic performance and planning. What imports are eligible for foreign exchange must agree with the fiscal ambitions for manufacturing and industry. Whatever we agree as fiscal and monetary policy, both sides must agree on what should be eligible and what should not be eligible. It cannot be the province of monetary policy alone. Neither should it be the province of fiscal policy alone. The second is our exchange rate management, and this continues to be an issue. The exchange rate of the naira to convertible currencies continues to face significant downward pressures because demand substantially outstrips supply, and that's just the reality. On one hand, we have tried demand management and rationing, which has not really worked because fixing the price while the parallel market reveals a massive arbitrage merely creates the opportunity for massive rents. It will also compound the backlog of remittances for foreign businesses who want to repatriate their earnings. The discussion that we now must have, and going forward, is how to manage the situation by finding a mechanism for increasing supply and moderating demand, which will be transparent and will boost confidence. I think that a more market-driven approach will be best. Some price discovery within the context of a managed float is certainly what is required. Some efforts at controlled price discovery that had been made in the past, and the CBN has a history of several of these efforts. They include the foreign exchange market, FEM, the interbank foreign exchange market, IFEM, and then various iterations of the Dutch auction system, whole Dutch auction system, retail Dutch auction system. All of these were price discovery mechanisms, which I believe can still be applied. While they may not be perfect, it would appear as if at least the rules were clear and there was relative stability. When people know how they can access foreign exchange competitively, this will boost confidence and inward flows will increase. My third issue is that we must focus on value addition and productivity in our economy. This happily is well articulated in our medium-term economic plan 2021 to 2025. We must, in doing so, loosen the generalized restrictions on trade. Blanket import restrictions are a dampener on economic activity because a lot of items that might be needed in manufacturing might be affected with a consequent negative impact on value addition in the economy. Importation itself is not the problem. It is what you import and what you do with the importation. It is value added that matters. And this is how, in my view, jobs and wealth are created. Many countries who manufacture are actually huge importers, and they import far more than Nigeria. Let's take, for example, garment manufacturing in Bangladesh, the world's leading garment manufacturer. The world's leading garment manufacturer does not produce most of the cotton it uses. As a matter of fact, it grows only 2% of its annual cotton requirement. In 2019, Bangladesh imported $11.8 billion worth of textiles and apparels, while it exported $37.94 billion worth of garments in the same year. So it's clear that there's nothing wrong with importation if you are going to add value and you're going to export. And I think that we should focus on doing that. Finally, a valuable lesson that we must draw from our efforts over the life of this administration is that coherence and coordination are essential for effective policy implementation. It's important for government policies to be coherent. Otherwise, different parts of government could end up adopting diametrically opposed policies. And I think that one of the very important issues, one of the very important steps that Mr. President has taken is the establishment of the delivery unit in the presidency. This, I think, is effective and greatly helps in ensuring coherence and coordination of policy. I believe we've done well with regard to using planning as a form of promoting coherence in policy making and implementation. And this is reflected by the adoption of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, the Economic Sustainability Plan in response to COVID-19, and then, of course, the National Development Plan 2021 to 2025, and the ongoing work on the Nigeria Agenda 2050. I think that what the broad consultative process that is involved in drawing up these plans does is that it helps to improve understanding of government intentions and direction, even by public servants, but certainly also by the private sector and the general populace. Planning also means that there is a process by which incompatible policies are realigned and repositioned. Closely related to coherence is coordination. It's important to coordinate the implementation of government policy very closely. Apart from the benefits of several viewpoints being taken into account, the coordination of economic activity enables key economic managers to know how to help their colleagues to achieve common objectives. The truth, of course, is that working in silos or going it alone can often have very harmful effects on policy implementation. Very closely tied to coordination is strong public sector capacity. And I think it's pleasing to note that the Office of the Head of the Civil Service of the Federation has been proceeding at pace with the Federal Civil Service Strategy and Implementation Plan. I think that one of the very important steps, Mr. President, which you took in 2016, and I believe I will not be accused of being self-serving here because we have only a few months to go. As you constituted the economic management team under the Office of the Vice President, and I think that that was a very administratively sound and wise decision indeed, because constitutionally the Office of the Vice President is chair of the National Economic Council, chair of the National Planning Commission, and also chair of the National Council on Privatization, which of course is the Bureau of Public Enterprises. Because of the strong economic position that the Office of the Vice President has been placed constitutionally, it makes perfect sense for the Office of the Vice President to be the coordinator, the interministerial coordinator of the economic management team. And I believe that Your Excellency acted very wisely and rightly indeed, and I commend this to future administrations and to the incoming President and Vice President. I'd like to thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Well, you know that a teacher will always be a teacher any day. Those who sat under him as a professor of law said he will come to class without even holding a sheet of paper, and he could teach for the next 2 hours. So thank you, Your Excellency, the Vice President. The next presentation is on enabling delivery and managing transition. And we are going to share from the Kenyan experience. That presentation will be given by our guest and our keynote speaker, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta. There will be a short video preceding the presentation and another short one concluding it. Your Excellency.
Your Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency the Vice President, Your Excellency President of the Senate, Speaker of the National Assembly, all protocols observed. Let me at the very onset take this opportunity to thank you, Your Excellency President Buhari, for your invitation to come and join you at this third Ministerial Performance Retreat, and to have the opportunity to share with you, and indeed members of your cabinet and government, our experiences in Kenya as a way of supporting each other in terms of our ability to deliver on the promises and pledges to our people. Let me begin by saying that despite coming from different parts of the continent, the challenges that we face are in many ways very similar. We all find ourselves challenged with inadequate infrastructure, with roads, bridges, health facilities, education facilities. We are all faced on this continent with a huge challenge of a youth bulge, large young population with very high expectations, but very little patience. We are faced with global challenges, global economy, global health pandemics, wars, many of which have nothing to do with us, but we bear the brunt of these problems. Food security, climate change, security and terror, just to name but a few. So the never-ending question that faces all of us is how do we meet these challenges faced with limited resources, an impatient population that wants everything today, and more so, how do we achieve our objective, sometimes in the very limited time frame that we have? What I think I have to offer as solutions are really two issues. The first being focus. The ability to be able to focus on what the critical issues are. We cannot be the jack of all trades. We cannot deliver on everything. But we can be focused to be able to target our interventions to those areas that most affect our people, have the greatest immediate impact, but also that lay the foundation for stronger nations and prosperity tomorrow. The second, I believe, is the realization that the challenges we face are not challenges that can be completed by any one single administration. So therefore, ultimately, the issue of continuity and succession planning is also very critical. I want to break my presentation into two parts. The first focusing on our first term in office. Second, regard to the second and ultimately succession planning for Kenya. When we came into office in 2013, we came in with a number of key pledges in most of the key areas. We had a challenge, a very big challenge of unity. As with most African countries, we are home to many nations within a nation. And national cohesion is a challenge that many of us face. We're faced with security challenges. We're faced with the need to increase job opportunities for our young people, requiring, just as we have heard here, creating an enabling environment for business to prosper. We're faced with the challenges of good governance. So very early on, we set up the Presidential Delivery Unit, which was embedded in the office of the President or the Presidency. And their main function and duty was to see how we could implement and ensure we deliver on the key priority areas that we had given. We had promised Kenyans that we would rehabilitate our railway lines. We had promised Kenyans that we would build a new port and open a new corridor of trade in Kenya, the Lapsed Corridor. We had promised Kenyans that we would improve the land system. That was a major problem in many parts of the country, and really be able to speed out the rollout of title deeds to give ownership to land. It was a critical thing for Kenya to increase power, not just generation, but the number of Kenyans that were connected to the grid. We also promised to hugely improve on health delivery, and also in terms of our road infrastructure. So we set up the delivery unit, working under my office, together with ministries, and focusing ourselves in the first 5 years, we were able to make tremendous progress. Just as an example, we were able to add an additional 40 health facilities on top of equipping most of our facilities, health facilities, with modern equipment. We were able to connect an additional 3.7 million Kenyans to the electricity grid, moving electricity connection from about 33% to 60% by the year 2017. We were able to increase the number of people who had access to clean drinking water, an additional 3.6 million people. And again, in the first term, we were able to add another 6,318 kilometers of paved roads throughout our country. But this is not to say that we didn't have challenges. We did. Because the first thing that we realized was that we had inherited a government where the tradition of silo operation was the game. And the first area we realized this was in the security sector, where, as many of you know, the early part of our administration, we were beset with a never-ending crisis of terror attacks coming in largely from the Al-Shabaab. And this really dampened both investor confidence in our country, but also creating pockets of unrest because people thought that they had been abandoned and left out by government. And what we came to realize is that the main problem was not that Kenya lacked the capacity to deal with the terror threat, but what we lacked was the ability of our security services to coordinate their activities and work together. If it was the military, they would operate in their own silo, the national intelligence in their own silo, the national police in their own silo. Intelligence would have information, but not share it with the police on time. The military would have information, not share it with their colleagues in the police. Attacks would happen on a police camp. The military would not act. That is a police matter. Till one day we told them, if you think that Al-Shabaab has a difference between you wearing one uniform and the other, when you all die, is when you shall realize the need for you to work together. And as a result, we put together what we call the multi-agency security team, where we pooled the resources of all these different security arms and agencies, and we forced them to work together. We forced them to collaborate together. We forced them not only to work in terms of intelligence sharing together, but also in terms of executing operations together. And as a result, we saw a very sharp decrease in these attacks, which enabled us to now be able to focus on the other critical areas that concerned our people, which included, as I just mentioned, health, education, power connectivity, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. We had challenges in that early part. Challenges, again, it was good that we learned from the security side of things when we managed to pull them together under that multi-agency. But we also realized that the same problem that existed with the security agency was the identical same problem that also existed within government. You needed to build a road. But before you build the road, you needed the Ministry of Energy that probably had cables that ran across the path of the road to move those cables. So you would get the road reached to a certain section, then everything stops. Why did it stop? It stopped because the Ministry of Energy has not yet moved the power line. The Ministry of Water has not yet moved pipes. The Ministry of ICT has not moved their fiber cables. So projects stalled as a result, again, of ministries not working not collaborating together. When we had the Department of Delivery, or the Presidential Delivery Unit under the presidency, when they would walk to ministries, they were seen as invaders, as interferers. We are the Ministry of Roads. We have our agenda. We don't need your help. We don't need your support. We are the ministry. We have our budget. We have our program. So to change the culture for people to be able to understand that we needed a whole of government approach took us a bit of time. So despite the successes that we had, we were not able to move at the kind of pace that we wanted, which necessitated in the second term for us to reevaluate how the delivery unit works and to move from a point of delivery as a unit to government being the delivery agent as a whole, and to incorporate the presidential delivery unit into government, into ministry. And what we saw as a result of that in our second term, we were able to move much faster. We were able to implement projects much faster and in many instances ahead of schedule. Where road projects, for example, were estimated to be complete in 18 or 23 or 26 months, we were able to bring the completion period down to sometimes 16 or 17 months, cutting almost 30% as a result of government being able to coordinate their activities and work together. We created what we called the Coordination of Government Committee that was chaired by a minister who is with me here today, and whom I hope will be given an opportunity to exchange with you during the technical presentations on how they went about it. And under them, meeting regularly every week, we had the permanent secretary, who also met every week and prepared briefs on programs and what each ministry was supposed to do in order to allow our flagship projects move at a much faster pace. We also then transformed that to what we call our county commissioners, or the government representatives at the regional or our county, in our case, county and local level, so that national government administrators in those places knew what projects were happening in their areas and regularly had to report back up their chain as to progress on those particular projects. And what we found as a result of doing so, many projects were able to be completed, if not on schedule, many of them well ahead of schedule. And this is something that I do believe resulted in us being able to deliver, where in many cases previously we were unable to deliver. And just to give a few examples, we were able to do a completely new expressway in the heart of the city. And many of you will know the difficulties involved in that. Maybe not here in Abuja, but I'm sure Lagos and Nairobi are very similar. Challenges of people, challenges of informal settlements, challenges of water and electric pipelines and everything else. But as a result of that approach, a whole government approach, we were able to complete this expressway ahead of time and well within budget. The same applied to developments of port, roads, and networks in Mombasa. We were able to complete another 8,000 kilometers of road across the country 2 mega dams completed well ahead of schedule. We were able to completely build a whole new port in Lamu, and I was able to commission that, and it is now fully operational. A new oil terminal that we were able to do in Mombasa, again, and completed well ahead of schedule, again, due to that whole of government approach. The same applied to our coffee and tea sectors that were struggling because of different taxes imposed by the Treasury, because of different levies imposed by county administrators, because infrastructure had been dilapidated and nobody had, remember, we needed to get these things fixed, because of archaic laws that prevented our farmers, our tea and our coffee farmers, from being able to exploit and to do better through value addition because of archaic laws that had been in place since the colonial administration that was really just meant to make us producers, not to make us manufacturers, not to make us value adders and create employment for our people. But again, through this multi-agency approach and working in close collaboration with members of our Senate and National Assembly, we were able to change some of these laws that were impeding business and that were stopping Kenyans from being able to achieve their social economic agenda as a result of these pressures. That would not have been possible without a whole of government approach. I heard very keenly when the Secretary of the Federal Cabinet was speaking, and if there's one thing I would encourage, is that as this administration winds down, let us not suffer the traditional, which I call African problem, that when one administration winds down, the next one thinks that whatever was done, we can do better. And you start trying to imagine ways of reinventing the wheel. The wheel can only be invented once. Please, we need to begin to institutionalize these practices if we ever hope to deliver on our pledges. As I said in the beginning, there is no single administration that has the capacity to resolve the problems that we face. And each administration can only build on the foundation of the previous. And therefore, institutionalizing and learning lessons and not repeating mistakes is part of our journey to transform this continent. But if we become people who adopt start-stop policies, as unfortunately many have done in the past, we will never fully achieve the social economic agenda that we set out for our people. And this brings me to the second part of my presentation. And that has to do with continuity. That has to do with transition. One of the biggest challenges, and I want to go back a little bit, that Kenya faced, and to a certain degree still faces, but is also faced by many of us on the African continent who are forced to live within borders that were not created in accordance with the nations that existed on the continent, but were created on the whim and the interests of nations far from this continent, is that we are nations within nations. And our ability to live and work together is something that we must forever continue to push as a critical agenda. No nation can develop without stability. And we can never have stability without inclusion. For my first term, one of the key issues I had to struggle with was an opposition that would block anything and everything that we did, not on the basis whether it is good or bad, but just because it was a government policy, so we must oppose. And this reached a head during the election of 2017, where again that fractiousness resulted in us having to repeat our elections after they were nullified by the Supreme Court, forcing us once again to go back to the field. Can't cheat you, I was quite upset by that, but my older brother here reassured me that it's no problem. He had to face it 3 times. I've only had to face it once. So we moved on and we accepted. But that still did not bring the issue at peace. And it was at that stage I realized that there is need for us to rethink the way we do our politics. Rethink because sometimes our parties are not necessarily formed on the basis of policy, but of region. Where do I come from? And it is my turn, it is so-and-so's turn, it is so-and-so's turn. And this, we realized, or at least I realized, was eventually going to bring Kenya down and Kenya on its knees, or divided for that matter, with nobody benefiting and all of us losing. So I reached out to my opponent, and we had engagement. And over a period of time, we began to realize that the differences between us were actually very narrow. There was no difference. The big problem was this feeling that maybe communities from one part of the country had over-dominated the political scene, over-dominated probably appointments, so on and so forth. And there was need for us to find a way to be able to have inclusion. And we started to engage together. And I was quite categorical and clear that our engagement does not mean I involve you in government. Because government is formed and I have a government. But that does not exclude you from being part of government. Because we have the 3 arms that are standard in any democracy. The executive, we have the legislature, we have the judiciary. But I also believe that there is room also for an opposition and should be recognized and involved and incorporated in what we do as government. Because it is only by so doing that all parts of the country feel involved and feel part and parcel of our government. Because government is not just the executive, it is also the opposition. In fact, that is why I think in Britain they call it Her Majesty's loyal opposition. They are loyal to the country, but doesn't mean that they have to be loyal to the government. You have to work together. But during times of emergencies, people come together. People form national unity governments, not because they're opposed, but if the national interest is at stake, they must come together. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we must recognize as a continent that our differences are so small in comparison to the challenges that we face. If an opposition were to take over today, they will still be faced with the same challenges. They must provide health, they must provide roads, they must provide water, they must provide jobs, they must provide security. These are the problems of underdevelopment. And unless we tackle these problems, in order for us then to say we have reached a stage where we can talk about other things and maybe start creating policies that, because the belly is full, I have a roof over my house, my head, I have a secure job, my child is in school, I have good health facilities. Until we tackle all these issues, as I told Obama, then we can now start talking about other things. That's what I told Obama when he visited Kenya and he started trying to introduce funny things. I said, we don't have time for those kind of discussions. We need food on the table. Huh? We need power. You know, we're not at that level, so there is none of our business. You can do your things there, but leave us alone here to provide food, water, clothing, shelter, schools, and jobs for our people. And if you are here to talk about that, we are more than happy to, but those are the things that are not relevant to us. And this is the way we need to look at ourselves when we engage also with the opponent. And to me, I took my opponent and I incorporated him. We used to do things. The reason we're doing this sport, I explain. I take him through. I put him in my plane. Come, I show you. Tell me what's wrong with this before you oppose. Let's go and see this health facility. Let's go and see the new shipbuilding yard. Let's go and see these roads being constructed. What problem do you have with them? He ended up having no problem. And I ended up having no problem. And we moved together. And we had peace. And that peace helped us drive the momentum of change and transformation and delivery much faster. And that is something some will criticize. Some in my own party criticized me for it, saying that I was abandoning the party. But I told them the party cannot be greater than the people and the nation of Kenya. It cannot be. And I have no regrets about that decision. And I do believe it is that decision that we took of putting the country first that allowed us to go through a peaceful transition, that allowed us to go through an election for the first time in 25 years that was nonviolent. The first time where we allowed institutions to take their role and their place. And throughout that whole process, we were very clear, and we prepared, especially our civil servants, especially our security agency and actors, that they must be ready to serve those who will come through as the people's will. So well before I had left office, we had already prepared the framework for a proper rollout, a smooth handover, and a smooth transition, even before we knew who the president would be. And I do believe it is that sense of continuity. It is that early planning. It is that ability to realize that no individual is greater than his or her country that will allow this continent to succeed. It is our ability to build on the past, not to dismantle and rebuild again, dismantle and rebuild, but to continue laying layer after layer that will make this continent the economic, political powerhouse that it should be as we move forward. So, Your Excellency, as I conclude, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for your vision and foresight, and to say that a nation must have a vision bearer. And that vision must continue to another generation, to another administration. And if we were able to do that, And if we were able to realize that victory does not belong to an individual but to a team, President Buhari's success is not President Buhari's success, but the success of his team. And his team need to recognize that even going forward, it's their ability to work together. It's their ability to hold together that results in delivery, that results in changing the fortunes of Nigeria, Kenya, and any other country on our continent. It is the team that wins. So, I know I have the same problem. Because, everybody thinks I'm better. Me, if President Buhari can do it, so can I. Next one. And before you know, you're fighting amongst yourselves. You've forgotten about your duty. You've forgotten about your functions. As you move towards preparing transition towards campaign, it is the team that must win. It is the agenda that must continue. It is the vision that must last. Then you will have delivered both for your party, your people, but ultimately also for your country. I wish you all every success. I do have with me my minister who was in charge of national coordination. I don't know whether he's in the room or anywhere. Is he here? Yeah, right there. I also have with me the gentleman, that was Fred Matiang'i. The gentleman was also in charge of my delivery unit, Nzioka Waita, who's right there at the back. So during your more technical sessions, they are more than ready and available to answer any questions, as am I. And I wish you every success, and I pray for the success of Nigeria and her people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Uhuru Kenyatta, the immediate past President of the Republic of Kenya. As we listen to him, I'm sure that you will begin to wonder whether he lived with us in Nigeria. It's just that all African issues are the same. Thank you for sharing those perspectives with us, Your Excellency. Now we should have a tea break, but it's not a tea break in which we will stand up in which we would adjourn for a few minutes. It's a walking tea break. The tea is at the dome, just at the entrance to this complex. You can go there, take your tea, come back, and sit so that we continue with the program. Anybody that feels like taking tea can always go out during the next session and get himself or herself refreshed. Lunch is about one and a half hours away, but there are two things that we must accomplish before lunch. And we're in a session that is called Taking Stock. Taking Stock. The first session of it will be overview of third year scorecard and summary of ministerial stroke NTA performance. That will last for the next 30 minutes. To take us through that will be Umaru Abu, FCDO-PERL. Umaru Abu. Okay, it's on his way. Overview of third year scorecard.
Two-day ministerial performance review retreat for ministers, permanent secretaries, and top government functionaries of the Buhari administration. We've had quite interesting speeches from the dignitaries here at the retreat. President Muhammad Buhari used his opening remarks to set the tone for the two-day ministerial retreat, presenting an overview of his administration's scorecard, especially in enhancing security, fighting corruption, and transforming the economy, which are the three planks on which his administration anchored its governance agenda. He rightly noted that an exercise like this will ensure that the administration remains focused even as the country launches into the period of politicking and campaigns ahead of the 2023 general elections. It's going to be quite a long day today as well as tomorrow for the president and his cabinet ministers, as well as other top government functionaries who will go into technical sessions to take stock and appraise the third year scorecard and performances of the various ministries, departments, and agencies of government. Retreat will afford the Buhari administration the opportunity to re-strategize on how to accelerate delivery of results along the 9 priority areas of the government, especially as it prepares to wind down in order to leave long-lasting legacies for successive administrations. While we allow the president and his team to tick the boxes and have frank conversations, we will now bring to a close this live telecast of the opening ceremony of the third year and last ministerial performance retreat of the Buhari administration. On behalf of the outside broadcast crew of the NTA, Africa's largest TV network, my name is Mitaire Ikben, now handing over to our studios for a continuation of our program schedule for the day.